Hello, welcome to Skull RPG Podcast. My name's Dwight Skull.
My name's Jacob Skull.
And today we're going to teach you how to tell your story.
So, Dwight, one of the things, since we're running through this, that I was thinking of is, how do you create a memorable villain?
Okay, memorable villains are, first of all, why do you want to create one? And then I'll talk about how. Why you want to create a memorable villain is so that your players will remember this villain, talk about this villain, hate this villain, and try to figure out like what they need to do to get rid of this villain. Now, that said, a part of it depends on your concept and what's at stake. And the villain doesn't actually have to be an NPC, although it's easier. A villain could be a concept or something like that, although that's harder to play. So most people will do a villain as an actual villain. So what I would do is I would look at villains that you've enjoyed from books and movies and TV shows that you thought were incredibly well done and start to model your villain after that. And if you look at those villains, you'll find out that those villains have goals, desires, needs, wants, and that the players, or the audience, if you will, on a book or a TV show, is clued in onto what those actually are. Mm-hmm. And a better villain is a villain who actually thinks that they're doing a really good thing, just in a really horrific way.
Yeah.
So,
Magneto's a great example. He's wanting to keep all of mutants around, but in so doing, he's trying to cause the genocide of the normal humans.
Right, so if you look at Magneto from the X-Men fame, the reason why Magneto's such a great villain is because he was a Jewish kid who grew up in a concentration camp who, depending on which of the numerous backstories you get from him, he ended up finding his powers after they kill his mother. If you're going off one of the movies, they find out he can work metal a little bit, and they bring his mom into a room, put a gun in her head, and ask her, can he move the coin? He's unable to move the coin because when your mutant power's first coming in, you can only do it underneath extreme stress. The Nazi soldier then shoots his mom in the face, killing her. He then immediately freaks out, and the room starts shaking because all the metal drawers and stuff start shaking. And then the Nazi captain looks really pleased with himself, until all of a sudden the 3 or 4 guards, their helmets collapse in on the heads of those people. And then he kills the Nazi general as well. And then he goes out and he rescues himself from this. So his entire backstory is humans have genocided my people, not mutants in this case, but Jews. And so he knows what humanity is capable of. So when he sees humanity's hate for mutants, he thinks Auschwitz. He thinks German concentration camps.
He's been oppressed once before, so why is this different?
Never
why is
again.
this different?
Yep.
Never again.
Never again. And so what he does is he's going to say, well, we're superior. Mm-hmm. We're Homo superior, not Homo sapien. And so he proceeds to gather as many of the strongest mutants as he can find to basically rid the world of humanity.
Yep.
And so Magneto's a great villain because you see what he's talking about and you kind of go, well, he's not wrong. He's just, this probably isn't the best way to go about it.
And because of that, Thanos is also a great example of, he watched how overpopulation killed his world. So in order to save life,
he has to destroy half of it. Right.
He's not inherently evil, but the goals to get to that are.
Right. And so the best villain, in my opinion, is somebody who has a lot to lose and is doing things for reasons they perceive to be 100% legitimate.
Yes.
And if you do it really well in ways that even your players, not maybe their characters, but the players themselves are going like, again with a Magneto, like, man, he's not wrong.
He's not wrong, but his methods are.
I don't know how to, we have to stop him.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily want to kill him because he's not wrong.
Making your players actually sympathize with your villain is the goal. Because you sympathize with Magneto because he had a rough life, but his end goal to keep him and his race around is evil.
Right, because he's becoming a Nazi.
In order to stop the Nazis, he's becoming a Nazi.
Right, and it's kind of that whole Churchill line that you and I were talking about this morning, just out of podcast, was when you go to fight monsters, be careful that you don't become one, right?
And both Thanos and Magneto became the monster.
Exactly. And so that is a really good idea for a concept is you take your villain and you have them doing something that would be, if they weren't doing it that way, what they were doing would be a good act. Mm-hmm. So saving mutant life is a good thing.
Yes.
Stopping overpopulation that could destroy planets is a good thing. Killing half of the world, half the universe to do it, rounding up humanity and killing them in concentration camps, these are bad things. So you want to have the villain's goal be very, in a lot of ways, good.
Yes.
But then if you're doing like a D&D campaign, think about how a lawful evil character would obtain that.
Yeah.
So in one of the first of all, DC makes some of the best cartoons. So one of the world's alternate realities, they had Superman. He lost Lois Lane. I think the Joker or somebody killed Lois Lane, and so he went nuts, and he swore to himself, "No one will ever suffer the pain I've suffered again." So Superman became a tyrant, and anybody that crossed Superman, he literally used his laser vision to lobotomize.
And there's another one where the Justice Lords, where it's the alternative universe where Lex Luthor became president and Superman killed Lex Luthor. He also lobotomized everybody because that's the best way to stop crime.
Peaceably stop crime. But it's a horrific act.
Yeah.
So what does it look like if Superman is lawful evil? Well, he's lobotomizing the population. Well, so is crime stopped? Yes.
There's also another one where Gotham City is in like Victorian era London. So now you have Jack the Ripper as Commissioner Gordon. In order to stop crime, Jack the Ripper
kills a bunch of people.
But you have the police commission, who's supposed to be doing good, stopping crime by murder.
Yeah, and so this is exactly the kind of thing you want to do for your big bad guy or gal or thing or whatever, is you want to, especially at the very top of it, right? So the problem with like a Voldemort or a Sauron is that their actions and they're intrinsically evil.
Power grab, but
it's power. Yeah, I don't want to die.
Nothing else.
They wanted immortality.
Yeah, there's some undertones with Voldemort of not liking humans because of how they treated him, but it's not really his main drive.
Well, and he is human, but I mean, it's like this thing of like it just becomes. It was like he's somewhat sympathetic, but not enough to care about. He's not a Magneto. So what I'm saying is take and I'm not saying to do this for every scene I have a final conflict. No. That's fine. This is your big...
This is your play.
Yeah, this is at the play level, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have some minor big bads in your acts and your scenes, but they don't need to have this.
Well, your act would be good to put minor ones in.
Minor ones, yes.
So how do you pull it off really quick? Because, coming to the end of time. So... First of all, as you see, Jacob and I study inadvertently or advertently. We study, how these things are done in popular culture, and that's actually a really good thing to do. So if I was going to do it, I would create a big bad person who was, had all the power in the world, blah, da 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 da. But then I would do something that makes them overly sympathetic, and I would tease it out over every one of the acts and maybe a handful of scenes that do the reveals, that they find out that the person that they think is evil and scum and, trying to rid the world of whatever, right? Maybe they're trying to rid the world of death. And so in order to rid the world of death, they become the most powerful necromancer in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they're working on ways to make sure that life, like no one procreates anymore, because if no one gives birth,
nobody can die.
No one can die.
And
he's raising them all from the dead. He's raising everybody from the dead so that they can live forever.
In his ideal world, nobody's reproducing because everybody's all zombified or skeletified, because now there's no death.
There is no death.
Everything's undead.
Yep, exactly, in that middle state. Because he can't stop people from dying. So the only thing he can do is stop them from having children and then raising them from the dead to make them live again. And so he wants to stop death. Why? Really simple. So you give him some sort of really huge sob story. Maybe his wife dies of a magical wasting disease that was cast on her by your good characters, not your characters, but like the king, the Merlin person in your game, and they did it back in their youth in an impetuous act. It was stupid. They feel bad about it. And it was because of that they turned their entire life around. But the problem is they created an enemy who's created an enemy for the world. And the reason why that person won't go and fight that person is because they realize they created them. And they feel overly guilty for doing it. And so your team now, over time, has to get built up to do it. And as they're doing it, they can have conversations every act or every maybe 5 scenes or something, 5 gaming sessions, where they go back to report their findings, and that Merlin character, who's kind of their boss, reveals to them
over time that, oh yeah, we caused this, and because of our guilt, we're complacent.
Yep.
And this is why we're having you do it.
I can't do it. I can't take something else from him.
Mm-hmm.
And you slowly find out about it. And maybe not from that character, but maybe from rumors that you start piecing together, maybe from books that you
over
find. Over
time, in some way, they find out, oh, crap. Everybody who's powerful in this kingdom, who's inherently good, caused this evil act, and they can't stop it because of the guilt.
And now you have this fun part for your players. Do they kill this guy? Or not? Do they try to reason with him? Do they turn on their own masters because this is such an evil act? Yes, now they've been atoning for their sins for the last 20 years. But they're still also allowing these evil acts to happen because they're not taking responsibility for their own actions.
Yeah.
So you have 3 options now for your players at the end, which is really good. Do they kill the big bad?
Do they reason with him?
Reason with him.
Or just let the world burn?
Or do they go kill everybody?
Yeah.
And create their own society but are they better than the good and the bad groups for doing that same thing?
Yes.
And if they do something like that and you want to play a longer game with a different set of characters, they could inadvertently, in doing that act, create the same thing that they sought to avoid. And then your next characters are playing in the world 100 years later, and you have the consequences of your former characters' lives, which is just so great.
To play with that concept, their former characters before these characters casted that spell.
Oh, see, that's one. As long as they actually did it.
Uh-huh.
Right? Or you could do another thing where you turn time on its head. We'll talk about that in a totally different podcast, but you turn time on its head where then they have to play those characters.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, point is, you can see what you want to do to make a memorable villain is actually make the villain have dreams, desires, needs, a backstory.
You gotta make the character human enough that everybody can relate to it.
Yep.
And then have its goals be something inhuman and so monstrous that they can't.
Right.
So then you have that dichotomy of you want that guy to have a better life.
Yep.
But at the same time, his end goal needs to be stopped.
I want Magneto to be happy. I don't want Magneto to succeed.
Yeah. You want Magneto's goals and things to be fulfilled, but not in the way he sees.
Yeah, like I said, I want him to be happy.
Yeah.
But I can't have him succeed.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's been very helpful to you. Honestly, if you can create a villain that's memorable, your characters, first of all, will love and hate you for it.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll talk about that game for years to come. And in my opinion, because we haven't talked about this yet, memorable gaming is what I aim to create. And
yes.
9 times out of 10, I miss it. But if you keep shooting for it, eventually you grab that brass ring and you have fond memories for everybody to talk about. And they kind of forget about the 50 weeks of crap you threw out to get there. So
yeah, the diamonds in the rough they'll remember forever, not everything else.
Exactly. But you got to get there occasionally, otherwise you'll lose their interest. So anyway, hopefully it's been very helpful to you guys.
Hey, thanks for listening.
And for more resources, please go to skullrpg.com.